The moment Marcus Hale saw the woman stumble onto the sunlit shoulder of the highway, her white dress torn and gray with dust, something deep inside him tightened, as if fate itself had reached out and grabbed his chest. It was late morning, the sky clear and painfully blue, traffic humming steadily past, and yet she looked completely out of place, barefoot, hair tangled by the wind, eyes hollow with panic and exhaustion. Marcus almost kept driving. Single fathers learn to keep moving, to avoid complications. But then she looked up, shielding her face from the sun, and the raw fear in her expression reminded him too much of the day his own world had shattered. His foot eased off the gas before his mind had time to argue. Before the story goes any further, let me pause for just a moment. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of doing the right thing when no one is watching, please take a second to like this video, share it, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Only kindness. Your support helps stories like this reach the hearts that need them most. Marcus pulled his aging SUV onto the gravel shoulder, dust curling up in the sunlight. He killed the engine and sat there for a heartbeat, hands still on the wheel, glancing in the rearview mirror at the booster seat behind him, empty for now but carrying the invisible weight of responsibility. His daughter, Rowan, was at school, safe, laughing with friends, believing her father was strong enough for both of them. He couldn't afford mistakes. Still, he stepped out of the car, the heat already pressing down on his shoulders, and walked slowly toward the woman. Up close, she looked younger than he'd first thought, maybe late 20s, her dress once elegant but now shredded at the hem, stained with dirt and something darker he didn't want to identify. Her arms were wrapped around herself, as if she were trying to keep her own pieces from falling apart. She flinched when he came closer, eyes darting to the road, then back to him, calculating danger and hope in the same breath. Marcus stopped a few steps away, careful not to crowd her, his voice low and calm, the way he used to speak to Rowan during thunderstorms. He told her she was safe, that it was daytime and people were around, that he wasn't going to hurt her. His words felt thin against the weight of her fear, but they were all he had. She didn't answer at first. Her gaze dropped to the ground, then rose again, meeting his eyes with a look that cracked something open inside him. There was a desperation there that went beyond a bad morning or a missed bus. This was the look of someone who had run from something enormous. Eventually, in a voice barely stronger than a whisper, she told him her name was Alara Quinn and that she just needed a ride somewhere, anywhere, away from here. She didn't say why. She didn't have to. The torn dress told enough of the story. Marcus hesitated, the world narrowing to the space between responsibility and compassion. He thought of Rowan again, of the promises he'd made to his late wife at a hospital bedside flooded with harsh white light. Keep her safe, teach her kindness, be the kind of man she can look up to. He nodded, motioning toward the car, and told Alara she could sit in the back if she wanted space. Relief flooded her face so suddenly it almost knocked her off balance. As they drove, the sun climbed higher, pouring gold over fields and roadside diners. Alara pressed her forehead to the window, watching the landscape blur by, as if memorizing freedom 1 mile at a time. Marcus kept his eyes on the road, the silence between them thick but not uncomfortable. He pulled into a small gas station just outside town, one of those places with faded signs and picnic tables. Out front, he bought her water, a sandwich, and a cheap pair of flip-flops, placing them on the hood of the car without comment. When she ate, it was slowly, like someone relearning how. They sat there under the open sky, cicadas buzzing in the distance, and something about the ordinariness of the moment seemed to loosen her guard. Alara began to talk, not all at once, but in fragments that slowly formed a picture. She had been a bride that morning. The dress had been perfect, the venue overflowing with flowers and expectation. Everyone said she was lucky. They said the man waiting at the altar was a catch, that the life ahead of her was secure and enviable. No one asked how she felt when she imagined the years stretching out in front of her like a locked corridor. She told Marcus how the realization had hit her not with drama, but with suffocating clarity. Standing in that sunlit room, surrounded by mirrors and smiling faces, she had seen herself disappearing. Her voice, her choices, her small rebellions, all of it folding quietly into someone else's plan. When she tried to explain, to hesitate, the pressure had intensified. Love, obligation, fear, all tangled together. So she ran, out a side door, down a gravel path, across fields and along the highway until her feet bled and the world narrowed to escape or break. Marcus listened, jaw tight, hands clenched loosely in his lap. He understood cages built from good intentions. His own marriage had begun with love, real love, but life had chipped away at it with bills, illness, exhaustion. When his wife, Maribel, had gotten sick, the future they'd planned evaporated into hospital corridors and whispered prayers. He'd learned then that sometimes survival meant making impossible choices alone. He told Alara about Rowan, about the mornings he braided her hair badly but proudly, about the lunches he packed with notes that said things like be brave and be kind. He didn't mention the nights when the house felt too quiet, when grief crept in like a thief. He didn't need to. Alara saw it anyway, in the way his voice softened when he spoke his daughter's name. As the day wore on, clouds drifted lazily across the sky, casting moving shadows over the road. Marcus offered to take Alara somewhere safe, a bus station, a shelter, anywhere she chose. She stared out at the distance again, chewing her lip, then admitted she didn't know where to go. Her family would be furious. Her fiancé would be searching. The world she'd known was behind her, and the world ahead was a blank page that terrified her more than the altar ever had. Something shifted then, subtle but profound. Marcus didn't see her as a problem to solve, but as a human being in the middle of becoming. He offered her a simple kindness, a place to breathe. He had a small guest room, rarely used, and a strict rule about honesty and safety. She could stay for a night, maybe two, just long enough to figure out her next step. The words hung between them, heavy with risk. Alara searched his face, looking for cracks, for ulterior motives. She found only tired sincerity. The drive to Marcus's house was quiet but different now, the silence warmed by tentative trust. Sunlight filtered through trees as they pulled into a modest neighborhood where lawns were uneven and wind chimes sang softly. Inside, the house smelled faintly of laundry soap and crayons. Alara noticed the family photos on the wall, the absence marked by a woman's smile frozen in time. Marcus showed her the guest room, left clean towels on the bed, and retreated, giving her space without making it feel like distance. That evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in amber and rose, Alara stood under a hot shower and cried until her chest hurt. She cried for the life she'd fled, for the courage she'd summoned, for the stranger who had stopped when he didn't have to. When she emerged, wrapped in borrowed clothes, she felt lighter and more fragile at the same time. Over dinner, simple and homemade, they spoke about small things. Books, music, the way certain memories cling like burrs. Marcus told her about the first time Rowan asked why her mother wasn't coming back. Alara listened with tears in her eyes, the weight of love and loss settling between them like something sacred. The next morning arrived bright and clear. Birds argued in the trees, and sunlight spilled across the kitchen floor. Alara woke with a start, panic flaring until she remembered where she was. Safety felt unfamiliar, like a language she was relearning. Marcus was already up, packing a lunch for Rowan, moving with practiced efficiency. When his daughter burst through the door later, laughter trailing behind her, Alara froze, suddenly aware of the reality she was stepping into. Rowan eyed her curiously, then smiled, unafraid. Children, Alara realized, are the truest judges of character. Over pancakes, Marcus explained that Alara was a friend who needed help. Rowan accepted this without question, launching into a story about a science project and spilled glue. Alara laughed, a sound that surprised her with its ease. The day unfolded gently. Marcus drove Rowan to school, Alara riding along, the normalcy both comforting and surreal. Afterward, they sat on the porch, the sun warm on their faces, and talked about what came next. Alara admitted she didn't want to disappear forever. She wanted to face the consequences of her choice, but on her own terms. She wanted to build a life that fit. Marcus offered practical help, resources, contacts, a plan. He didn't rescue her, he supported her. In that balance, Alara found strength she hadn't known she possessed. She called a friend, then her sister, conversations filled with tears and anger and, eventually, understanding. The world didn't end, it shifted. As days passed, a quiet bond formed. Not romance, not yet, but a recognition of shared scars and shared hope. They cooked together, walked in the afternoons, spoke openly about fear and courage. Marcus felt something easing inside him, a door he'd kept closed creaking open to light. Alara felt herself standing taller, her reflection slowly aligning with the person she wanted to be. When the time came for Alara to leave, the morning was bright and calm. Her bag was packed, her eyes clear. She hugged Rowan, thanking her for the laughter, and turned to Marcus with a gratitude too big for words. He wished her well, meaning it with every fiber of his being. As she walked down the path, she paused, turned back, and smiled, a smile full of promise rather than escape. Marcus watched her go, heart heavy and full all at once. He went back inside, the house humming with life, and realized that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop. Stop for a stranger. Stop for kindness. Stop long enough to change someone's story, including your own. If this story is touching your heart, if you've ever been at a crossroads or offered help when it wasn't easy, please take a moment now to like this video, share it with someone who might need hope today, and subscribe to Only Kindness. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive. And before we reach the ending, I have one special request. Please comment below and tell us where you're watching from or what part of this story resonated with you most. Your words matter more than you know. Weeks later, Marcus would sometimes drive that same stretch of highway in the bright daylight and think about how close he'd come to missing everything. Alara would be somewhere else now, building a life defined by her own choices. Rowan would grow up believing that kindness is not weakness, that second chances are real, and that even in the middle of an ordinary day, something extraordinary can begin if you choose to stop.